This is basically a podcast that we're putting together so that we can help out other people that are thinking about getting into business or are in business and need some advice, because as entrepreneurs we always need a little bit of advice from everyone, really, because every business is different, every person has a different way of thinking. But for you, let's go back to your childhood, because you were brought into a family of business people. So you were brought into a business early on. Tell us a little bit about how old were you when your parents started the business, or were they already in business when you were a kid?
Yeah, my entire life I was brought up inside of a grocery store. My parents, we lived on the apartment above the store, which was at 391 Brock in Toronto.
So nice.
Right in front of the grade school there, Brock School.
Mm-hmm. Downtown Toronto.
That's right. And we had they had a kitchen in the basement. They stored some products for restocking and things like that in the basement, and that's where I spent a lot of my time. And in those days, it was a little bit different. My parents, they weren't so rigid on where their kids were when we were kids hanging around in the neighborhood. It
was a different time. We had a little bit more freedom to.
In that regard, yeah, we did have a little bit more freedom. We were lucky in that regard. We knew never to go too far away, right? But yeah, I mean, many times we'd be out in the school in front of us or in and around the area. There was another school not too far down, and we were allowed to roam free and be with our friends. But we'd always come back home, of course, and where we had the store.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was really brought up, was always inside.
And you have an older brother as well?
So I have my older brother, Carlos, that's right.
So you guys were out of school, straight into the business.
That's right, yeah.
Even during school, right? I mean, you had the good old ways of doing business back in the day was you're the son or daughter, you have to help out.
Yeah, we would leave school even before we knew what it was to actually work or do anything. We would hang around with kids in the area and things like that. But as soon as we started to be more observant as to not just fooling around after school and things like that, and you want to feel like you're doing something with more purpose to life, so you start to be aware that everybody is working and stuff where you are, and you want to start to help out. And so you start to extend your hand and say, teach me how to do this and teach me how to do that. And then you start to learn, you start to help out, start from the bottom, and you start to work your way up.
And your parents, they're from Portugal, immigrated here and decided to get into this adventure. You, even though you've been raised in Canada, in Toronto all your life, how much did the culture affect you? In a good way or a bad way, but I think in good ways. Having that Portuguese culture, they're always present, even though you were born here. Were you born here?
I was born here.
You were.
Both my brother and I were both born here.
Yeah. How did that affect your growing up?
I love the fact that I was born in Canada. I think Canada is an amazing country. I see it. In a way, I've seen Canada sort of blossoming into what it is now, today, which is just so much to see, so much to do in and around the GTA, and businesses are growing, and economies are growing, and buildings are being built. I mean, there's so much that's going on that's really bringing a lot more value to the cities. And in any regard, so being Canadian, 100%, I'm very glad that I'm Canadian. But of course, my culture is mixed in with that of the Portuguese culture, because my parents are Portuguese, and in the house we always spoke Portuguese, so I speak pretty good Portuguese. I wouldn't say 100%.
Oh, you can always ask me a couple of things.
Yeah.
Go with that.
but yeah, so I was brought up by my parents being Portuguese.
But they brought that culture with them, even with the products that you guys sell, and they used to sell them as well. They were very Portuguese based, very European based. that decision that they obviously made was based on what they knew best, right? And at the time, I don't think there were those many locations that you could actually get products.
Imported products.
Yeah.
It might have been a bit harder before
right?
that. I mean, I would imagine it's a pretty big investment to buy a container of product to ship it over, and then I mean, how are you going to sell the products after you pay for transportation? And there's always risks involved. There's a lot of getting to communicate with a whole bunch of people to actually go from visiting Portugal and visiting the different businesses, being able to put a container together and send it over. So my parents have always had a very strong work ethic, and they've always been a little bit adventurous in that regard. And that's something that I've always admired in them, and that's something that I think both my brother and I have sort of captured in our own personalities as well. And because with anything, I mean, there's anything that we do, there's no 100% guarantee, there's no 100% certainty. There's always going to be risks involved, and but you know, if you weigh your pros and your cons, and you know, you are going to be the person that can better answer the question of, is this venture, is this investment going to be worthwhile? And you have to tell yourself, I'm going to be 100% committed in case anything goes wrong, to be able to resolve the issues, whatever they may be. You know, you'll get the job done.
Commitment is really that main
Persistence. Person has to be very persistent and not let, you know, because just like with anything, there's ups and downs. You want to be in the middle so that there's balance, right? But with everything in life, there's always going to be ups and downs, and so being persistent and trying to maintain your ground, sticking to your principles, being humble, I think in the long run it'll pay off.
So they started with one spot, but you know, they worked hard and they grew and they expanded their business into different other stores in Toronto and also into Mississauga, which is the store that you have now for how many years now?
10 years.
Time does fly.
It does fly, yeah.
So take us a little bit through that journey of, you know, starting, because one thing is when you're working for your parents and helping them out, and then all of a sudden, here you go, Paul, let's start a business. I mean, obviously they're there for you and all of that, but you know what? There's a lot of responsibilities, no doubt of that. So take us through it, those first years, those first headaches, and how you overcame all of that, and how you've become the success that you are today in your store.
I mean, let me think. I just was, okay, we're going back 10 years ago, and everything both my brother and I have tried to do is to sort of lift the weight and the pressure off of our parents, because we saw with our own eyes early on, being second generation, a lot of the difficulties that they were going through, and being conscious human beings and rational. We wanted to actually facilitate things as much as possible for them. We felt like early on, you guys have worked hard, you guys have done your part. I mean, mind you, my parents are now both in their 70s, right?
Yeah.
So
they need to slow it down a little bit.
So for years now, we've been trying to take on more, sometimes than we can even handle, just to lift the burden off of our parents, because we know more than anybody how much they have really sacrificed, and that's a legacy that we want to carry on and let our kids know as well. But in any regard, moving to Mississauga, again, I tried to take on as much as I could on my own without having to bother them with, here's my troubles and here's what's going on and things like that. And it was very challenging, very scary at times.
I was just gonna ask you, what was going through your mind that first day? You know, that official opening day that, okay, now things are gonna get real.
We had a grand opening, and the place got packed, and I felt like, okay, so this is what is to come now. This is what I need, is what is going to be expected, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, when we opened, because we actually took a long time to open that store, and we weren't 100% organized when we did, because it had already been so long. We were already past due the day of opening, right?
But again, this is what happens a lot of times when we plan stuff.
Yeah.
You know, things, the dates, what we wanted to happen, it doesn't.
No,
really
things
happen.
never go according to plan.
No.
Like John Lennon once said, life is what happens when you're too busy making plans. So while you're making plans, life is going on, and then things happen. And
Yeah, 100%.
so, but in any regard, we needed to get the shelves mounted and stocked, and then we didn't take enough time to really train the people in all the various departments. And to be quite frank, there was a lot that even myself I had to learn.
Yeah.
I came from a store that was already fairly established in Toronto, right?
Mm-hmm.
Moving to Mississauga, it was a whole new store, new concept, new demographics. I mean,
It was new
a
everything.
whole new ballgame, right?
Yeah.
And I had to adapt, and I had to learn. I had made mistakes, and I tried to
You learn from that, right?
learn and keep carrying on. But one thing I knew for sure was that in order to survive in that market, I noticed early on we had a little bit of competition in that area, we came and brought more competition to the area, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But we were basically looking to expand. We saw that my parents they saw that was a potential opportunity to grow. So we're the new guys in the area, and there was already a little bit of competition.
But I guess you guys continued that.
Yeah, but there was already like some competition with larger, well established, even chain stores and things like that. And I became very worrisome. How are we gonna compete with something like this? And I promised myself that I would work as hard as I possibly could, but failure was not an option. And it was my opportunity to try to prove something to myself, to my family, to my peers.
But I noticed that every time I go to your store, and I know you now for quite a while, you pay a lot of attention to quality. You pay a lot of attention to the way you're presenting your products to your customers. And I think that might be one of the key features in success. Right?
That's one of them, in the middle of so many others. But having a keen eye for detail, and not leaving things to chance, trying to be meticulous in every corner of the store. Like when the customer walks in, the presentation of the fruits, the vegetables, signages all around the store. I wanted to call out to the customer. I want the customer to say, "Oh, well, that's nice, right?"
Yeah.
And
because at the end of the day, if they feel comfortable in your store, they're going to be, it's going to be just a better environment for them to look around, to
exactly.
buy more.
I want it to be a good, happy experience. I want them to know, like, okay, somebody is taking, not somebody, but there are people here that are taking the time and the care to make the store look and feel a certain way as to appeal more to the customer. But of course, that is not enough if you have to match that with so many other things to really be competitive. You have to have the right products, you have to have the right quality, you have to have a very competitive price.
Put in the hours.
Put in the hours. Countless hours. When I started there, the hours was just crazy hours that I'd be working every single week.
I think the biggest misconception, when I talk to entrepreneurs, it always comes up. I think the biggest misconception that the public has is that the entrepreneur, you own a business, so you make your own hours, you do your own thing.
Yeah.
And the truth is very different from that.
Especially in the beginning. Anybody can tell you that they should have somewhat of an understanding that the beginning is always difficult no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
And when you start a business, that's no joke, because that could really affect your life in a major way. Not only your life, but if you're planning on having a family, it's going to affect your family's life. So you got to take that very seriously, and you have to be willing to commit. Minimum of 5, but a more reasonable number would be like 10 years of your life to be really, really committed religiously to that endeavor, to that business, to those customers, to your staff. You have to put yourself out there for all of them before yourself, and you still have to make time that you're available for your family, and then whatever is left over can be for yourself, you know. But that's what it takes in order to really be in business, and I guess to be somewhat successful.
Now, when it comes to, you know, having a business and having a successful business, we always go through a lot of mistakes that we already touched on that. What would your advice be to whoever's listening to us that, you know, is going through that tough moment? Because we all know it happens. You start, you're all, you know, you want to create this thing you have in your head, but then all of a sudden the time frame is off. The person doesn't show up. The orders are delayed. Things like that happen in every single business. What's your advice to somebody that's starting off and is now probably in that situation where things don't seem so beautiful?
It is good to have to surround yourself around people that are like-minded to your vision, that can support you and you can support them. I really believe in the spirit of one for all and all for one, right? Like if you do for 10 people, then those 10 people will do for you. So if you can have, you know, have yourself surrounded with positive people, that is very helpful. Not everyone can have that, and I would just say that you're not alone. Things like that are going to happen all the time, and when you get through something that was difficult and now you feel like you're on safe ground, more obstacles are going to come, more things are going to happen, and it's not going to go according to plan. But stick to your vision, and all of those things ultimately will help build you up. Take those things as like the building blocks you need to become stronger, to become more confident. You know?
And what about the team? How important do you see that block, the team block in a company?
Team has to be very united. If the team's not united, it'll just create you know, a big ball of stress for yourself. You want to see your team together, united, communicating with one another, but that's also an example that you have to give, you have to lead. So you have to be there you have to be approachable, you have to be open, you have to be willing to speak to them, and have them informed of why things have to be the way that you're expecting them to be, what the importance, what the relevance of it all is, so they can really, that image, that passion that you have can be captured into their minds so that they can also do the same.
Cool. So I would love if you could just leave a message to anybody that's listening to us in regards to business. How about this? How about you give yourself a message to when you were starting off your business? What would you tell yourself right now if you were starting your business?
I would say to myself, don't be afraid, because living in fear is like having a disease that slowly takes little bits and pieces away from you every single day. Don't live in fear, be strong, and you will overcome. And when you do, you'll be a lot stronger and a lot more confident in the end. And you'll see like it will have been worth all of that to be where you are.
Cool. Paul, thank you so much for this time.
Okay, thank you for having me, Jimmy.
All right.